I'm Jonas Vingegaard, and welcome to the Cycling Dane.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another video here on the channel. Today we're going to be ranking all the World Tour teams plus alpecin-fenix of 2021. Of course, we've had our team review season that concluded with Ineos Grenadiers, where Graham Wilgoss of the Bradley Wiggins podcast, of course, was part of that. But anyways, delighted to be joined by Mr. Gregor himself, Ewan, and also our Yorkshire sprinter, Jack, who of course both were part of this team review that we had in 2021. But anyways, yeah, Ewan, do you want to introduce people what the rules are, as always, for these things?
Well, we will be judging each team on this list, World Tour and our pro-continental friends, based on their results in 2021. This is also in comparison to how they performed at World Tour events, most notably Grand Tours and the Monuments, but also we will judge them against what we expected from them and how they performed over past seasons, for instance, and that will decide where they land on our grid, with legendary being the top category and poor, of course, being the most disappointing category on this list. So shall we get things started with the first French team on our list?
Cofidis, just to recap a bit, 12 victories and yeah, Guillaume seemed to have been the highest performer, really. But yeah, guys, let's open the floor. Where do you think Cofidis should actually go in our tier list?
I didn't really rate them, did I, in the team review that we did? I kind of like ripped him a little bit, and yeah, I wasn't very nice to him, wasn't I? I gave him a very bad rating as well. So, but still, 2 top 10s in a Grand Tour. You can take that back and say, yeah, that's not bad. There's also second in Dwarves from Vlaanderen as well. I don't know that together. Maybe it's a meh. It's not really poor.
What? I would say satisfied.
Would you?
Yeah.
Probably in between the meh and satisfied then, really. It's hard.
Okay, they still haven't got that duck out of the way, the Tour de France one, but yeah, 2 top 10s with Guillaume. I don't think they could expect more than that. And then, of course, the Giro d'Italia taking a stage win there.
In comparison to what they've done before, yes, it's slightly better. We also had the disappointment, once again, of Elia Viviani, who's leaving the team. And Christophe Laporte was consistent, almost winning a Paris stage multiple times. And he was up there second in Dwarves de Flandre. I would agree with Jack maybe and say meh.
What?
But
okay,
I don't know.
Okay, 2 against 1, 2 against 1. But okay, Cofidis, I was in your corner. Anyways, moving swiftly on to Jumbo-Visma. Primoz Roglic, of course, took his Vuelta a España. If we just go back to just exactly how they performed this year, many people would say that they're the team of the year, with Wout van Aert absolutely dominating through most of the season. But yeah, 43 victories, the last one coming in Milan Torino with Primoz Roglic. Yeah, guys, what would you give? I would just say legendary straight away, but you two might disagree.
Well, I would, yeah, I'm on in between very good and legendary, because they really did go for it this year.
The Tour de France was incredible, considering that they lost Roglic, and then Jonas Vingegaard came out of not nowhere, but he wasn't exactly an established name when it comes to GC.
4 stage wins is good as well, and a second place at the Tour as well. So
a top 10 in the Giro with Tobias Foss. Wevelgem win, no monument this time, but
some good one-day wins like Amstel Gold as well. Really, well, that's a bit controversial.
True.
And Tirreno Adriatico was a good result for them. You know, I wouldn't expect Wout van Aert in the first place to get that far in second place, but he did it anyway, and he got the last stage and did it against Philippe Pogano, although you could argue that he wasn't on form, really. He probably wasn't even trying, but regardless, it's a great result. I mean, all around, they've got great results anyway, and with a bit of bad luck as well.
This is probably the first team where we're like, well, what were we expecting from them? Were we expecting more? Is it really legendary, or would 2 Grand Tours with potentially 2 monuments be better? Would that be a legendary for Jumbo-Visma?
I was expecting really a Grand Tour, but not particularly the Vuelta. I expected him to get that. I expected Roglic to get that, really, with little challenge. Tour de France, I kind of expected him to go really far and actually try to beat Pogacar this time and right is wrong. But yeah, that obviously didn't happen, sadly, because of luck. But I'm going to go with very good, really.
This is a tough one, isn't it? Because they did very well last year. Our expectations were sky high. And they essentially repeated it, but with different names involved and so forth. Yes, Jonas Vingegaard had a fantastic Tour de France. Another strong campaign through the classics for Wout van Aert, just not quite as consistent as last year, but they still managed to get some good results there. And of course, I would say probably their best ever Grand Tour performance at the Vuelta a España 2021. The only thing here, as I said in the initial video, was the Giro. They got a top 10, but no stage win there. I think that would have definitely cemented it in legendary, but I'm torn between the legendary and very good. The only thing I'd say is keeping on the top is because there's no team like it at the moment in the sport.
So, okay, I'm going to put in very good because we've all mentioned very good at some stages. But exactly as you said, Ewan, our expectation was sky high after their 2020 season, and they've kind of just been going upwards, and yeah, just a lot of bad luck this year. But anyways, now we come to a team that we love to talk about, especially this year, Israel Stardom Nation. Well, when we actually did the review itself, it turned out that Israel Stardom Nation were actually a bit better than we thought, especially in the monuments. So in terms of this year, 17 victories, a lot of them coming from national championships, unfortunately. And we only really have 3 victories in the World Tour. One Giro d'Italia stage win, of course, with Dan Martin, who also finished top 10. And Mads Smith, of course, the Danish national champion, who wasn't at the time, won stage 6 of Tirreno Adriatico. And Ben Hermans, of course, that very, very good win, winning the overall at the Arctic race of Norway. So, yeah, guys, let's not mention Chris Froome, because he's had so much bad luck since basically 2019. Yeah, where do you think Israel Stardom Nation deserve to be this year? And just for comparison, in 2020 they only took 10 stage wins, and yeah, again, 1 Giro win and 1 Vuelta win. Dan Martin, of course, we've mentioned that so many times, his incredible 4th place that year. But yeah, Israel Stardom Nation, what will you give them?
I would say this is good. Satisfied for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
The stage win at the Giro. They didn't get anything at the Tour de France. In fact, it felt like they weren't even there. Their Classics campaign was consistent after they brought in Formarca and Woods in the transfer period. They had high expectations. They even commissioned a television series to follow Michael Woods through the Spring Classics, and it didn't quite work out. They are satisfied for sure.
Moving neatly on, I don't think there's much to be said other than that. Now we come to one team where Graham and I, we were disagreeing a bit. I wanted to give them 9 out of 10. He gave them a 7 out of 10. But again, this is the expectation that we have. Ineos Grenadiers, of course, winners of the Giro d'Italia this year, and winners of a lot of one-week stage races on the World Tour. The Tour de Romandie, Vuelta a Catalunya, both the Tour de Suisse and the Criterium du Dauphiné. But alas, only third place in the Tour de France. So, and Egan Bernal, of course, wasn't that great in the Vuelta. But guys, Ineos Grenadiers, you're both Brits. Yes, Ewan, you're even a Brit, even though you try and deny it. Yeah, where would you put the British outfit? And in terms of stage victories this year, they won 34 victories, with the last one being Ben Swift at the National Road Race in Lincoln.
Yeah, this one is a little bit complicated because Ineos Grenadiers have had a fantastic season if you look at their results on paper. A clean sweep of a lot of UCI World Tour races with completely different riders at most of them. So it's been consistent for the first half of the season. Once Carapaz and Pete Pogano won their gold medals over in Japan, it fell almost solely within the hands of Ethan Hayter to keep the team in winning ways, which I think kind of lets them down from the second half of the season when they probably could have done more. They came close to a Paris-Roubaix podium with Moscon. Yes, they were up there at the Vuelta a España, but they didn't win a stage. No stage win at the Tour de France. That's the first time in a very long time that has happened. So it's underwhelming, the second half, but you can't deny a Grand Tour victory, and all those stage wins at the Giro and at these World Tour stage races does prove that they are a top tier team. I don't know where to put them on this tier though.
That's a good result, really, for both the Grand Tours.
Most consistent team in the Grand Tours, I think.
It's probably on the very good, but just getting up on there and the legendary a little bit. I expected them to win the Giro. I didn't expect them to win the Tour, but I mostly expected them to actually be the only challenge for Roglic. But that didn't really go through, isn't it, with their main man. He kind of cracked in the end, didn't he, really? And Adam Yates pretty much did most of the work at the end anyway. So, yeah, I had different expectations. I would say it was very good. Okay,
yeah, and I would say some of the tactical blunders were amazing to see in the Tour de France as well. But yeah, anyways, moving on to our next team, and that is, of course, Lotto Soudal. Yeah, not a great season, to be honest. 12 victories, sorry. And again, well, actually, one rider had a really good year, the 22-year-old Florian Vermeersch. And yeah, Ewan, you can tell us a bit more about him, finishing second at Paris-Roubaix this year.
Yeah, well, avid viewers of the Cycling Dane channel will know that we actually did say Vermeersch was the man to watch at Roubaix, and he finished second place there at just the age of 22 years old. Yes, this history student from Ghent thing maybe got one of their stellar results of the season. Let's also not forget that Caleb Ewan finished second at Sanremo as well, which is a good result. He wasn't quite firing on all 4 cylinders, though, throughout the season. He won a stage at the UAE Tour, alongside a stage win at the Benelux Tour, the Belgium Tour, alongside his Giro wins, but I wouldn't say this is the best we've seen of Caleb Ewan. Yes, that crash did mar the second half of the season, but he wasn't quite as dominant as we were expecting. In terms of the other classics results, they weren't really top class. Tim Wellens similarly was not quite the dominant force that we've seen in the past and the exciting rider that we know him to be. So I find this one quite hard to classify. No GC top 10s. I would say quite vapid at Grand Tours. Didn't really feel their presence at all. If they weren't there, I wouldn't have noticed. So I would say this is either meh or poor. I will leave that in your court.
Meh or poor? Ouch.
Yeah, I probably would say meh. I'll give them a break. I didn't really rate them as well in our team reviews. I would say a meh because...
Okay, fair enough. We'll put them in meh.
I mean,
two monument second places and two Giro wins, and you guys are harsh.
No, I mean, come on. We'll give him credit for getting second on his debut of Paris-Roubaix.
Yeah. So
arguably the hardest race as well. And it was 10 times under this year.
Especially that one, yeah. So anyways, now we move on to Trek Segafredo. 19 victories this year. The last one coming with Ryan Mullen at the Irish road race. And of course, Vincenzo Nibali also took, one of the last victories was winning the Tour of Sicily overall. Headlines will be that Milano-San Remo win by Jasper Stuyven. And guys, Trek Segafredo, they haven't really changed much around in their team, but where do you feel that they should be in our ranking this year?
I'll go with satisfied, maybe. I mean, good start, really good start, and then kind of went off a little bit, but they got stage win Tour de France. Satisfied, maybe a little, almost a bit meh. But like at the end, they sort of start falling off a little bit, I guess, in the end. So, satisfied. I'd say satisfied.
I would also agree. The monument victory, yes, it is probably their highlight. But outside of that, a breakaway stage win at the Tour de France without much hype. A bit of a lack of engagement throughout the whole season from riders maybe we expected a little bit more from, including Danish superstar Mads Pedersen. So satisfied, I think, is where they belong.
Not to mention that guy that won San Remo, he got fourth in Tour of Flanders, which is another really difficult monument to do. I'd say it's the second hardest probably to do.
Next, moving on to Team Bike Exchange. And of course, they had a very new kit and they were also nursing the loss of one of the Yates brothers. 9 victories this year. And guys, the real big result, 3rd place for Simon Yates at the Giro d'Italia. Yeah, I'm not that convinced by them this year.
I think this is probably the most boring we've seen Bike Exchange perform over the course of 1 year. Don't take it personally, Australian fans. It's just a little bit disappointing. They brought in some new talent, most notably Michael Matthews, to help invigorate the team. That didn't quite work. And the whole of World Tour wins just sits at 2. A Volta Catalunya stage win from Esteban Chavez and that stage win from Simon Yates. Yes, 3rd place at the Giro d'Italia is good, but we expected that almost, given that he has won a Grand Tour in the past and has done very well at the Giro. And we had a depleted field once we got to the finish of that race. So this is everything we would have expected and a little bit less, I would say. Disappointing Tour de France. Once again, a little bit vapid on their half. And I would say this is meh as well.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We'll go with that because...
So moving on for time's sake as well, Ag2r Citroen, of course, they came in with a huge sponsor, Citroen, really putting some money into the team. And Greg Van Avermaet arrived. 12 victories is all they had this year. And in terms of World Tour wins, they only had 4. Of course, the big story is going to be Ben O'Connor, the Australian, finishing 4th at the Tour de France. But what do you guys make of Ag2r Citroen?
I'll go with meh because, a 4th place at Tour is good, but that's not exactly something I would say is in the satisfied category. Like if I was a team manager, if I was in charge of that team, I would say...
Third place good. At the Ronda. Third place Ronda wins the Breton Classic with Benoit Cosnefroy and a 4th place and a tour stage win with Ben O'Connor. I would say satisfied. But
when you pull out that, I suppose you can put him up to satisfied. Yeah, I'm probably being a bit too harsh on them.
What do you think, Ewan, being the French super fan that you are?
I've got a lot to say about this then.
Benoit Cosnefroy, you must say something.
Well,
bit underwhelming.
Benoit Cosnefroy, everyone's favorite Norman rider and party animal, getting a solid World Tour win there. The first classic win since Oliver Naesen won the same race a couple of years back. The 3rd place of the Ronda is strong, and I'd say Ben O'Connor's Tour de France was actually very, very impressive. They're one of only a couple of teams on this list who have actually won stages at all 3 Grand Tours, which is quite rare for them. Winning at one of the most exciting Grand Tour stages of this year with Clément Champuissant. Also at the Giro d'Italia, we saw Andrea Vendrame win from a breakaway. So they won stages at all 3 Grand Tours. They got a top 10 at the Tour de France and top 20s across the board really at there and the Vuelta. So I'd say this is satisfied. It's the start of the big project that they have going on.
Next, we move on to a team that we love to talk about, I think even more than Israel's Stardom Nation, and that is Movistar, the Netflix superstars, if you will, and 15 stage victories this season. So a vast improvement on last year where they only had 2 from Marc Soler, and the last victory coming by Alejandro Valverde. Yeah, he's still here at the Giro de Sicily or Tour of Sicily. And yeah, the big results, of course, was that Enric Mas finished second in the Vuelta a España, so really continuing his strong GC form in the Grand Tours and finishing 6th at the Tour de France. Unfortunately, 1 place lower than he was last year. But I mean, the big story will be that Miguel Angel Lopez rage quit the Vuelta a España. That aside, guys, what do you think of Movistar's season? Like, they've had a lot of good results this year, you must say.
Yeah, I agree with that. They're the most dramatic. They seem to be the most dramatic team. That's why I love doing a show about them. Yeah, I go with satisfied, really. Nothing better than that. Satisfied. They're definitely not met. They're definitely some exciting to look at. Great teams still, even now. They still have the old Alejandro Valverde, who's 104 years old now as well, still there. Yeah, I'd just say satisfied, I still enjoy watching these guys. There's always something dramatic surrounding this team.
Yeah, exciting. Not necessarily the most consistent, but they have a Grand Tour podium to their name this year. Top 10 at the Tour de France with Enric Mas as well, alongside a string of World Tour stage race top 10s overall. So I would say this goes straight down the middle into satisfied.
Okay, now we move on to probably the team of the season, the Koenig Quickstep, big narrative, potentially the Mark Cavendish story, or was it Remco Evenepoel and Joao Almeida at the Giro d'Italia? There's so many things happening with this team. Fabio Jakobsen as well, coming back and winning stages at the Vuelta a España. So a lot to unpack. Julian Philippe winning the first stage of the Tour de France, pulling on the yellow jersey. And yeah, I would say legendary at this point. They seem to be the most winning team every year, 65 wins this year. Of course, the best victory probably with Kesper Eskain, out sprinting Mathieu van der Poel at Ronde van Vlaanderen. Legendary, I would say. Challenge me if not.
Well, I'm very conservative when it comes to picking something like this. I try and not look like I'm biased or anything like that, but I'm almost on the verge of saying legendary because, yeah, they have Julian Philippe tearing it up. As mentioned, he's a 2-time world champion now as well. And Remco Evenepoel is nearly enough a demigod at this point anyway, like Mathieu van der Poel is. The kid would probably be like another Eddie Merckx at this point. It's crazy. So, yeah, the results are just crazy. Grand Tours were good with stage wins and all that, but not GC wise, although you have to admit the Mark Cavendish story is brilliant as well. But yeah, I probably would go legendary, only just legendary.
Yeah, I think this is probably a strong season from them. We're so used to seeing this format from the Koenig Quickstep with the big sprinting dominance at the Tour and maybe another Grand Tour. But I feel like there's something different about this year because it's a lot of different names who have also come out to join the party. It's not necessarily a 2-man show. We have Joao Almeida, who has had a very, very good second half of the season. We have Mark Cavendish sprinting at the Tour de France, whilst Fabio Jakobsen comes back from almost a life-ending injury to win stages at the Vuelta a España, let alone to fly back to the Giro d'Italia, where we saw this whole Remco story unfold and multiple days in the white jersey there. There's different names winning, and they've taken monument victories and Grand Tour leaders jerseys and a handful of Grand Tour stages, and I would agree with legendary quite firmly.
Going from a high to potentially a low here. And next we're talking about Team Quebecer Next Hash, ASOS, whatever you want to call them. And it looks like they won't be part of the World Tour for 2022. But anyways, looking back at their 2021 and 5 victories, 3 of them coming in the Giro d'Italia. And yeah, of course, 2 other things that stand out was, of course, a 3rd place at the Benelux Tour with Victor Campenaerts and 2nd at Gent-Wevelgem behind Wout van Aert with Gianmarco Nizzolo. Fabio Aru 2nd at the Vuelta a Burgos. Of course, he's finishing at the end of the year, or has finished. But where would you put Quebecer Next Hash, ASOS?
I go with Paul.
Really? 3 Giro wins?
Yeah, that's good. But what else is there to write home about, though? Remind me. That's what is there to write home about with World Tour.
Benelux 3rd place. Gent-Wevelgem 2nd place. Tour de Suisse 6th place. Yeah, exactly. So you got plenty of stuff for a team that we probably didn't. Well, a team that was saved in the 11th hour.
It's like I'm pouring there, but
Ewan?
I don't know. They're really boring, aren't they? Quebecer, Nextas stroke Assos. Don't really bring much to the party. They come with Giacomo Nizzolo, and that's it, really. Yeah, they had a good Giro. All their stages were almost quickly forgotten, which is a shame, particularly Mauro Schmidt, who won an incredibly difficult stage to Montalcino. But I don't know about this team. I really don't. I just have very little motivation to consider this team on this list. So I'll go with Paul in that case.
Wow.
Actually,
Guys,
no,
you're so mean. We haven't actually got
I'll go with
anyone in
Matt.
Paul.
I'll
Right,
just
go
change
with
it to Matt because Giacomo Nizzolo wore the Maglia Ciclamino for a while, and they did have a couple of stage wins. And if we want to be fair in accordance with the rest of these teams, then I think Meh is the way to go. Next, EF Education First. It's an interesting team. They have taken some good results this year, haven't they, Scott?
It's always one of these more alternative teams, if you will. The last 3 victories came from Danish riders. Magnus Cort, of course, running riot at the Vuelta a España. Calvelgren woke up in the last, well, one of the 2 last Italian one-day races to win there. But yeah, Ewan, I'll let you begin on this one because you are quite fond of EF Education Nipo. 16 victories, and yeah, what did you think of their season?
Yeah, I think this team is a fun team. I would like to ride for them if I ever got signed as a pro. That's not going to happen. But I must say, EF have had a pretty solid season. Yes, they had, I would say, maybe a better one last year with their Grand Tour 3rd place. But this year, we saw them win across the board. Stage winner Paris-Nice, courtesy of Magnus Cort and Stefan Bissiger. Giro d'Italia win for Alberto Bettiol before what was quite a consistent Tour de France until the downfall of Rigoberto Urán. And the team managed to come back up fighting at the Vuelta a España with Magnus Cort, who took some stage wins there. So it's been a pretty exciting couple of races for the American outlets. And I would say this is a solid season. I would put them in satisfied.
I would as well. I would agree.
Well, moving on, just for time's sake, we come to one of the new teams on the World Tour, and that is Intermarché Group Robert. And yeah, Jack, I'll let you start on this one. Taco van der Hoorn, of course, took a stage win at the Giro. That's probably what most people remember. And then Ryan Tyremere, of course, winning at the Vuelta, and Odd Christian Eichen and him both had the red jersey for different stints. But where would you put them?
Oh, this is difficult because they were like interesting to see because they're new and they have some interesting faces. It's credit obviously as well as Odd Christian Eichen as well. So he definitely surprised me actually getting the red jersey. Although maybe just unsatisfied, maybe. I hate to give them a meh because they almost probably could have got it, but they seem to be this ferocious team that really is giving it all they got. Stage wins in Vuelta and Giro is really good as well. Not many teams can probably do that when coming into the World Tour straight away. Yeah, I'll go with satisfied. What would you think, Ewan?
I agree, 100%. Let's not forget as well that they almost got top 10 at both the Vuelta and the Tour de France. The team, I think, are firing on all 4 cylinders to improve next year when they bring in some new talent, including Alexander Kristoff, which should be exciting.
So anyways, now we move to, well, one of the most consistent teams in GC racing, and that is, of course, Astana Premier Tech, that have had a bit of drama surrounding Premier Tech, the sponsors. But anyways, this year, 13 victories, and the highlight will probably be the Alexander Vlasov impressive 4th place at the Giro d'Italia, and of course also Alexei Luzenko becoming the highest placed Kazakh since a certain Alexander Vinokurov in the Tour de France. So guys, Vlasov, of course, a good star here, and Luzenko finishing 2nd in the Dauphiné, and Vlasov finishing 2nd in Paris-Nice. Jakob Fuglsang, unfortunately, not doing anything other than 3rd in the Tour de Suisse. But yeah, quite a Astana-esque season if you look at the GC results in the World Tour races. But yeah, where would you put them?
I expected more from them, from this team that is known from like in the past for being all those great.
Yeah, but from where? More from where? Vlasov at the Vuelta, or?
Yeah, I don't know. This one's difficult. This one's way more difficult for me. I didn't even give him a good rating, didn't I? Really, in the team review, and I like to stick by that consistently. So because I didn't mention that it's good results from Vlasov, what he did obviously anyway, and yeah, top 10 in the Giro and the Tour is really good. And then again, 2nd in Return to Dauphiné, and Paris-Nice is 2nd as well. And as well as a 3rd one with Ion Izagirre. Just on there for a satisfied, but I could have also given them a meh because I would have expected maybe a bit more from this team that is known you know, like the name Astana is known from the past from what it is. This team that's won Grand Tours so convincingly, but they're not that anymore. Now, that's the thing. So yeah.
Okay, we'll let Ewan have the deciding. Where do you want to put them, Ewan? Meh or satisfied?
He's on spot here.
Satisfied. I think since they've lost Superman, who's coming back next year, I think the direction has changed within the team, but they still got 4th place at the Giro, 7th at the Tour, consistent throughout the year in World Tour stage races, getting top 10s with different riders as well. It's been a consistent season, and I'd say it's been an okay performance from Astana. So satisfied makes sense.
So anyways, now we come to, well, okay, I said Quickstep was the team of the season, but arguably this could be the team of the season as well. Bahrain Victorious, and we made a bit of fun when they called themselves Victorious last year, but they well and truly proved us wrong. 30 victories this year, last one being, of course, that impressive, well, mythical now, Paris-Roubaix monument win with Sonny Colbrelli. And yeah, guys, 2nd at the Giro, winning the Benelux Tour as well, 3rd at La Vuelta a España with Jack Haig, 9th even at the Tour de France. Many people forget about that with People Bilbao after they lost Jack Haig through injury there, crash. But yeah, I would just say legendary straight away. Prove me wrong.
Oh, you know, this is a great team. They really are. They really are like the current Quickstep. In some regard, they have got some great results. Not to mention
wins in all 3 Grand Tours, like Ewan said as well. Not everyone's done that.
Paris-Roubaix, and of course, they really are a great team. They showed that they're a great team in the Tour. So good that the police came to their door and said, "Hang on, there's something going off here." Maybe legendary, yeah, because they really are just a brilliant team. Really.
Not forgetting,
I think they've really come of age in 2021 for sure.
Yeah,
and the win at the Paris-Roubaix alongside 2 Grand Tour podiums, that's very, very good. And I would say probably better than we would have expected based on their previous performances when they purely relied on maybe Nibali to get them a good result. Now they have a whole palette of GC riders and attacking beasts who can get away with a World Tour victory. And I'd say this would also be legendary.
Yeah, a lot to come in 2022. But anyways, moving on to a team that has been losing riders like, well, I don't even know what analogy to give it. But Team DSM, of course, Romain Bardet. Check out our interview with him. Interesting season, changing from Team Sunweb, some changing sponsor names. Only 8 victories this year. Still managing to get 3 Vuelta a España stage wins, which was quite impressive. And also, on top of that, winning a stage at the Tour of Poland and Paris-Nice in terms of World Tour victories. And of course, Romain Bardet finished 7th at the Giro d'Italia. And Michael Storer, on top of the Vuelta a España wins, also won the Tour de l'Ain. And yeah, guys, where do you think Team DSM should be? I don't think it should be poor. Like, they've not been a poor team. I'm just going to say that. Meh, I don't think that probably fits in either. 3 victories at the Vuelta and a 7th place at the Giro, on top of winning the Mountains jersey, of course, in the Vuelta.
Okay, when you phrase it like that, maybe it could be satisfied. But
what are you going to put them in, meh?
I was going to. But then when you put it out like that, you probably can give them a satisfied, but only just.
Poor Tour de France, we would say. Giro, decent. Vuelta, very good. So anyways, moving on to, well, swiftly on, DSM, you can thank me later. Groupama FDJ, and yeah, Ewan, as our French expert, I'll let you drive this one.
Well, I'm going to drive this one quite hard and fast. It hasn't been that good. It's actually been
unlike
fairly underwhelming for a team that showed promise last year, with Pinot bouncing back and David Gaudu showing that he could be a big contender in the Grand Tours. This did not come into fruition in 2021. No top 10s in Grand Tours this year, which is a shame. Gaudu came close, but did not quite get it in the end, following a string of bad luck in the second week of racing. In the classic season, they were almost invisible, apart from David Gaudu's 3rd place, which is impressive, but nevertheless, you'd expect more, I would say, including the elephant in the room, the sprinter from Picardie, Arnaud Démare, which never really got going. I would say this is poor.
I'm going, meh, probably meh.
I mean, really 22 victories.
But no Grand Tour wins. When you
Démare
look at the
won
victories,
Paris Tour. Démare won Paris Tour.
It's just French circuit races. This is the deceiving thing about French teams and how they have such high victory counts, including Arnaud Démare. It's because they go to Tour de la quelque chose and then they win like 5 stages there because their opponents are it's a 20-year-old from the Marseille Cycling Club, and then they go around saying that they've had a brilliant season based on their win count. This, I don't think, is a fair matrix to use. Nevertheless.
2 World Tour wins as well. 2 World Tour wins. The Basque Country, stage 6, and the Tour de Suisse time trial.
Well, I'll go with Ewan. Ewan is the French expert. He wants them in poor. Groupama FDJ, send your complaints to Ewan at Ewan Wilson, Twitter, whatever.
Ewan Wilson48 on twitter.com.
So anyways, moving on to Bora Hansgrohe, of course, that are losing Peter Sagan. And they've had a very interesting season this year. Much like you were saying with Bahrain, McLaren, Merida, Victorious now. They've not solely relied on one person. Peter Sagan has taken victories, but not as many as he has done in the past. 30 victories overall. 5th place at the Tour de France, I think, is one of the standout results, even though 5th place at the Tour de France, you don't really see the person that much. Kelderman. Paris-Nice win by a bit of fortune by Maximilian Schachmann. 1st place at the Deutschland Tour for Nils Pollitt. And yeah, guys, what sticks out for you from them? Peter Sagan taking a stage win, of course, at the Giro d'Italia as well.
I'm going to go straight away and just say what I think they should be, and you can dispute it. I would just say that they are just insatisfied, really. They're there because Sagan's days are probably numbered. It's not what he used to be anymore, really. He seems to become this pure, massive sprinter now, and not being this little hybrid of a puncher and sprinter like he was in the past.
But he can't even win sprints anymore, so he's not even a sprinter.
Yeah.
He didn't win the green jersey. He didn't even finish in Paris this year.
Exactly. But regardless, 5th is good. Will Cummins is a great rider. Paris-Nice, of course, that was a bit of luck, because if Roglic didn't have those crashes, then it would have been probably a different situation. But yeah, I just was satisfied because the results are pretty decent. Few World Tours as well, or more than few, actually. But regardless, though, not as much as, you know, the other one. They did get a lot of national champions as well, but that doesn't probably really count as much.
Maybe. Yeah, nice jersey, that's it. But Patrick Conrad, stage win, and Nils Pollitt, a stage win as well at the Tour de France.
Satisfied, I'd say, straight away.
I agree. I would like more from Bora. I think they have a lot of potential with their riders, and they delivered to some extent. Good. Okay, Wilco Kelderman came 3rd at the Giro last year. We have Sagan, who's this well-known household name. Pascal Ackermann, who's won Grand Tour stages, and Malia Ciclaminos.
Fair point.
And Maxi Schachmann, he had a solid season, but I don't think he got the big classics win he was looking for. Yes, he still won Paris-Nice, but I don't think that's one that will go down in the history books. It's been a content season for Bora Hansgrohe, but next year I think will change things because they've kickstarting their new GC project, and they're bringing back everyone's favorite Irish sprinter, Sam Bennett.
Neatly moving on to one of the biggest teams of this year, 32 victories, UAE Team Emirates, winners of the Tour de France yet again. Tadej Pogačar didn't go to the Vuelta, unfortunately, but he did win Liège-Bastogne-Liège, Il Lombardia, Tirreno Adriatico, UAE Tour. In terms of the Giro, Joe Dombrowski took a victory there, of course. And yeah, guys, the Tadej Pogačar show, really. And where do you think UAE Team Emirates should be?
Stole my line there, Scott. The Tadej Pogačar show, and it literally is. I mean, first race of the year, UAE Tour, won that convincingly, then Tirreno Adriatico, he won that, just like he did with the Tour de France the year before, with 3 jerseys, and then, of course, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, got that convincingly. Although it was a challenge, though, he was up against some serious players that could have easily outdone him, but regardless, he did it anyway. And, of course, the Tour de France, it did that. There was some challenge. He did crack a little bit because of youngness on Mont Ventoux, which was...
Did he though? Or was it just... Did he just fake it? I'm starting to think he was just faking it.
Well, yeah. All warfare is based on deception, but I think he was kind of... I mean, he is human, end of day. He definitely is. But I'm going to say this is a very good, only because of Pogačar. And I'll just have to say...
A very good?
Yeah, a very good, yeah.
Okay.
Because we're basing them on a team, not one person.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. And he didn't win the Vuelta, so it wasn't two Grand Tours.
So at the end of the day, this is a thing they need to take home and realise that they do need what they've brought in. They need Almeida, and because that can probably shake up the GC a bit.
Yeah, Tadej Pogačar and friends almost. And the friends were very supportive this year. I would say that the team were a lot better at the Tour de France. They were, in fact, I would say a little bit underestimated as a super team there, controlled a lot of the racing. Rafael Majka changed the game when we got to the Pyrenees in particular. And I think they really were behind Pogačar 100%. Yes, most of their wins have come from Pogačar, but they've still won stages at all 3 Grand Tours with different riders, Dombrowski and also with Rafael Majka at the Vuelta and Giro, respectively. Not to forget as well, the top 10 at the Vuelta Spania, which was delivered by David de la Cruz. So the team can function without Pogacar. Yes, he is the head of the team, but most teams do have a leader. And I mean, 2 monuments and a Grand Tour, particularly Tour de France, you can't really argue with that.
So very good or legendary?
Well, when Ewan says it
I would have
that,
put them. I would have put them in legendary if you went to the Vuelta and won the Vuelta. But it's again this thing that we're doing against our expectations. We kind of expected that he would win the Tour de France. We might not have expected that he won 2 monuments in a season, but it's a shame that he didn't go to the Vuelta España. So very good or legendary? I'm going to say very good. And then what do you think? Just very good or legendary?
Yeah, I'm sticking with very good still. Yeah, even though what Ewan said.
Well, anyways, moving on to our last team, and they are not a World Tour team. They're this pseudo World Tour team, courtesy of doing so well and having basically World Tour wildcards to every single race that they want to be in. I think actually every single one of them. But anyways, 33 victories, winning stage in all the 3 Grand Tours at least. Mathieu van der Poel, of course, starring for them this season, as he always does, winning their only stage at the UAE Tour because their team had to withdraw because of certain reasons. And then winning Strade Bianche in absolutely empiric fashion. That's probably one of the highlights of this year. And the Tour de France, Mathieu van der Poel, of course, winning stage 2, taking the yellow jersey. Tim Merlier, stage 3. And at the Vuelta España, Jasper Philipsen and Tim Merlier winning in the Giro as well. So, Jack, you're a huge fan of them. Ewan, you're a huge fan of them. Where would you put this pro-continental team? And if we're judging it by pro-continental standards as well?
Well, they've come a long way, this team.
Or how do we judge this? How do we put them against World Tour ambitions, or are we putting them as a pro-continental team? Because as a pro-continental team, they're probably as high as you can get.
Let's just pit them with the World Tour because they can compete with them, because they did, like you say, they got stage 1 in each of the Grand Tours, and Mathieu van der Poel really teared it up. He started really well with Strade Bianche, and then obviously his Paris-Roubaix result, it was his first Paris-Roubaix as well, and I've been waiting to see him in that because it kind of fits him really. It's a brutal race, and he's a kind of man that's good in a brutal race like that, and he came third in it as well in his first time. Of course, he came second in the Tour of Flanders, which he won the year before, so yeah, he almost won it again, and that it's just an incredible result either way. So they really should be a World Tour team without a doubt, and they've come a long way since they were what they used to be a long time ago when it was just Mathieu van der Poel kind of carrying them, and now they've got this team of great riders now that can actually really challenge. Just put them in very good because they put themselves around the spot and show what they can do, especially with Mathieu van der Poel surprising us in the Grand Tour because I didn't expect him to.
I agree with very good. I think this was a consistent season from the team. Winning Grand Tour stages at all 3 is a phenomenal feat, and particularly with 3 different sprinters, 2 sprinters and a punchy guy in the form of Mathieu van der Poel, in addition to what is an iconic victory at Strade Bianche, which will probably go down in the ages, and winning the World Championship of Sprinting, known as the Cel de Prijs. So solid all round, and I would like them maybe just to diversify the people who win a little bit more. If they brought in someone for the mountains, that would be very interesting, but time will tell if that can happen. All in all, it's a very solid season from alpecin-fenix, and we're happy to see them competing at such a high level for a pro-Conti team.
Well, that's basically it for our list. So you can see in front of you the ranking list, and make sure to let us know down in the comments down below what you think of our ranking. Of course, we love to continue the discussion further on in the comments. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button